Now, this could be, again, a whole other podcast episode in and of itself, but let's touch base on one that we also both identified, which was stress. And that whole, I'll tell you, I don't remember if I told you this when we did our first episode about our stories. My gut was never worse than when I lived with my crazy ass roommate. I call her Crazy Carol to this day. Crazy Carol, if you're listening, my God.
Can we
I don't know what to say to you.
Talk more about Crazy Carol and later? I want to kind of bring up Carol all the time.
Sure.
Crazy Carol.
Absolutely. And we could call all crazy people Crazy Carol from now on.
Yeah, kind of like Karen.
Yeah, exactly. She'll be our Karen. But like when we literally got in an argument about gluten, like you do.
Yeah.
And I had gone gluten-free and she thought that I believed that everybody on planet Earth needed to be gluten-free, and she got mad at me like a crazy person, yelled at me and said, "Nikki, not everybody needs to be gluten-free." And she like slammed her door. I was like, well, that was weird. And we had friends over. We were having like a movie night. I was like, sorry guys, that was Trey awkward. I don't know what her problem is. And she slammed her door. And then I visited a friend for like the weekend, and I came back like Sunday night, and crazy ass Carol did not talk to me for a month and a half.
Oh my gosh.
And that little squirt of a 5'3" run, I'm 6 feet tall, so I could call her that, but she was stomping around in the apartment and slamming cupboards and slamming doors and being the most passive aggressive psychopath ever and not talking to us. And my poor third roommate, who thank God is like the most awesome human on the planet Earth, she kept me as sane as I was. But when Crazy Carol was at her craziest and not talking to me before Mamie and I moved out, I mean, I just like everything made me bloated. Everything made my intestines cramp to a point where I thought she was putting gluten in my food intentionally because that was the genesis of the fight. I thought she was like sprinkling flour in my food. But in actuality, I look back and I remember thinking I could drink water and get bloated.
Yeah.
Literally like anything I put in my body. And I look back and I'm like, well, yeah, because your gut-brain axis was shot. You were stressed to begin with in graduate school, let alone when Crazy Carol had her snap moment and wasn't talking to you for a month and a half. And I look back at past Nikki and I'm like, oh, sweetie, take some ashwagandha or something or get out of the house. And, I can speak from that very like obvious firsthand experience. There are stressors where in the moment you're like, I'm stressed. And then looking back, you're like, I was stressed. But then there's other ways that you could be stressed and potentially be pretty oblivious. And I've had moments like that too, where in the moment, I would have told you, no, I'm not stressed. And now looking back, I'm like, oh, I was crazy stressed.
Yeah.
And I was like bottling it up in like a tight ball and shoving it down. and that's the American way.
Yeah.
Is to just bottle it up and shove it down. And it's not serving anybody. But I do think a lot of us have some degree of gut-brain axis dysfunction or adrenal fatigue or dysfunction or just stress. And it affects every cell in your body.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, my gut issues definitely were on a negative trajectory due to stress for a long period of time prior to when my gut issues really kind of went overboard. And I would say a stressor that took my gut issues to the next level was starting a new job. It's a job in our company that the company I worked for was like growing 20% each year. So like the growth of this company was insane. And it's like it's like kind of like a techie company that I worked at, but just the amount of work that was expected. And I was doing like a lot of high level projects for like board members and stuff. And I was like I had just graduated. So it was just crazy. And then I had to like, my boss didn't know all the projects I was working on and like couldn't help me prioritize. That was definitely like a huge straw that broke the camel's back in my particular case. I would say too, I tended to feel like I thrived when I was under stress, like just in general. I think in general, I think too, I was under a lot of physical stress throughout my life and building up to this as well. Like my workouts were very endurance heavy, and I don't think that helped my gut. I think sometimes we don't connect that there's physical stressors that play into everything. So definitely my workouts weren't helping my mental, emotional stress at work. And just working with clients, it's opened my eyes in a lot of ways on how, what you were saying, the American way of like bottling things up and shoving them down.
Yep.
We tend to value being stressed out. So
Totally.
it's really hard to unpack that. So I always try to look out for it. And I always try to make a point with the clients I work with too and say, you know, our goal is not to get rid of stress. You're always going to have some level of stress. And there's actually good stress too. And that can affect your physiology in a similar way as bad stress as well. But there's always going to be stressors. You might have a new job. You might have a new kid. You might have a new house. You might, you know, have a death in the family. Like there's always something, I feel like, going on. And it's about raising your tolerance to stress.
Yeah.
And I think that concept is really helpful because it's not like you have to, you know, cut out every relationship that's stressful or cut out everything that's stressful. You have to quit your job. Like some jobs you might need to quit if they're overly stressful, but most of the time you can sort of raise your tolerance to stress, and it's not necessarily that the job's bad in any way. It's that your tolerance to stress is low. Your stress bucket is overflowing, and you can make that stress bucket bigger by doing certain strategies.
Absolutely.
And removing things that you can, but the goal is to not have no stress.
Yeah. I mean, I oftentimes joke with patients, and I told my patient that I just saw today about this, that I can't get rid of your stress. I wish I could.
Yeah.
Unless if I told all of my patients to quit their job, abandon their family, and move to the beach and just get like a beach house and lay around naked on the beach all day and catch like wild caught ocean fish and like grow organic produce and lay around and get vitamin D and like have sex on the beach all day. That's the ideal state of human physiology. And that would be the zero stress situation, assuming that like other people are cleaning your house and doing stuff for you. Shy of doing that, I don't think I can take away all stressors in your life. So it's not practical for me to attempt it. But if we can help your body tolerate it, so instead of having this like insane roller coaster that we're all used to, where it's like, oh, I'm having a good day. Oh my God, I'm stressed. I'm having a good day. I'm stressed. Oh my God, I'm bottoming out. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. If you could do things in your life, like I'm a nerd for herbs. So things like eleuthero, ashwagandha, ginseng, licorice, holy basil. I mean, the list goes on and on. Passion flower. So many of these herbs can take your roller coaster from this to this.
Yeah.
So like you're still going to have more stressful days and less stressful days, but at least you're not going to be like going nuts and scrambling as much and then bottoming out and being fatigued and then going nuts. And like it makes the rat race much more tolerable, and it can increase your tolerance and, to your point, make your bucket bigger. That's my angle. And then things like meditation, having hobbies. I mean, I'm into painting right now, and it's like the best stress relief I think I've ever had in my entire life because I'm painting all the time and I love it. So, you know, it depends what you would get joy out of and what would help empty that bucket for you. But there's a lot of ways to pet a cat. So it's not like you have to take ashwagandha or you have to do meditation. They're both great, but pick the things that call to you.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. You know, meditation's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but you can find something that works. I will say, on the stress side of things, with some of the physical stressors, so like things like poor sleep, maybe movement is too intense or not enough, or maybe circadian rhythms are out of balance. Like I do think those things really anchor our stress response as well, which like tend to go unrecognized a lot of times when we think of stress as like, oh, I definitely need to do stress management, which is very important. I'm not saying it's not.
Totally.
But recognizing too that like lack of sleep is a stressor. Not getting sun is a stressor. And
Yeah.
you
To your
know,
point, not moving
yeah,
or overtraining.
exactly. Stressors.
Eating not enough calories.
Stressor.
Friggin' stressor.
I know. My gosh, that's such a big one, I think, in the SIBO space.
Yeah.
So I just think sometimes we view stress in a narrow lens when it should be seen in a broader lens. So I just wanted to make sure like people weren't just focusing on like, oh, I feel like I'm good, like mentally, emotionally, but then like their lifestyle habits are not great in terms of sleep,
Yeah.
movement, that sort of thing. You can always try to pull the levers of the physical stressors as well.
Yeah. And I think, you could think of it as all of these things will cause, you could think of it as inflammation or disruption of bodily processes, or you could just think of them as stressors. And there's physical stressors and emotional stressors, or like psychological stressors, and they both will take a toll on the body. And your body's very smart, but it's also very dumb in the sense that your body just perceives, I'm stressed. And that's enough. It doesn't particularly matter if it's actually life threatening or if it's, this like chronic bubbling BS that we deal with, or if it's overtraining or not moving enough. Your body is just going to register, oh my God, stress. And then stuff shuts down and stuff gets weird. So all of those I think are really great points to be made. And again, this could be an entirely separate episode.